All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Ready to answer some legal questions. We had a guy call so early, I think you called about 10 minutes early. He finally petered out on the phone there, just waiting for the show to start. So call back in if you had a question, 540-0580. We're ready to answer them here. What's in the news? Well, let's see. Justin Bieber had some marijuana. He was hanging out with some rappers, right? Go figure. But enough about the TMZ stuff. I do like following that, however. I have to admit, it's kind of like one of those guilty pleasures. Sort of like Deadspin.com or TMZ, the funny things to take a look at. I did get, I do get some weekend appointment questions in on the mail here, so let's see what we have. 540-0580. I have a question concerning divorce. My ex-husband agreed to pay all marital debt in our divorce, and I agreed to give up the house to him. It states that in our divorce papers. My premise has been over a year, and even though he's paying the joint visa and loan, my name is still on it, and also my name was on the mortgage. How do I take my name off of these? Well, it's going to depend on what your agreement said. If the agreement was well written, it might require him to refinance the house into his name and pay off the joint debt as part of the refinance. Or it may have been impossible. There may have not been enough money in the marriage to make all that happen. So we'd have to look at exactly what your agreement says that you signed. And depending on the writing and the power in it, and maybe if the email does say it looks like maybe there was a requirement that he refinance the house. Of course, if it's an impossibility because of his credit rating or income, that's going to be an issue. So usually what we do is we write into the agreement further something that says, and by the way, you must refinance the house by the following date or time. And if you don't accomplish it, then, you got to sell it with a licensed realtor. Notice we say not try to sell it yourself, but we say sell it with a licensed realtor. Chuck, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Carl, good afternoon. Carl, is there a preferred method for trying to extract some compensation from a landlord? And part two is withholding rent on the way out of the lease ever a good way to do that, or can they mess with your credit report?
Well, the short answer is withholding the rent will create a debt, right? And I guess they could always report it out. So if they're going to report it out, they can report out you haven't paid.
Report it to who?
Well, to the credit agency.
Oh, they can. I didn't know if when I say landlord, I shouldn't have said landlord. It's being managed by a property management group.
Yeah, and the bigger companies are more likely to do that because they're in tune with those things.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, they can get a judgment against you, and then the judgment's going to show up on your credit rating.
Yeah, we don't want that.
On the other hand, the appropriate way to do it is to pay the money that you're withholding into a separate escrowed account, like a savings account or something, and you entitle it, the Smith rental account, whatever. Mm-hmm. You put your monthly rent in there. That does two things. Number one, it makes sure that if you're wrong, the money's there to cover it. Number two, it proves to the judge and the court, and actually is required by the rule, really, or the idea.
Well, you just made a leap of going into a courtroom. Is there any... The property manager, he's not responding to emails, not taking phone calls on one thing. He's blatantly outside of the lease by not providing access to the rental unit on time, not having the place cleaned, rugs done. The one major thing, not providing access to the property, to a myriad of other minor things along the way. And I'd prefer not going into a courtroom. Is there a couple lesser ways to deal with this?
Well, the short answer is I say, if you withhold the rent, I guess if you're not going to go to court, because they may take you to court, okay? That's what happens. If you don't pay, they may take you to court. On the other hand, try to evict you. And then that's when you can say, well, look, I've been putting the rent aside. On the other hand, sometimes when you start withholding the rent and they ask why, and you show them that I'm putting it in an account, then they start the wheels start to turn and go, wait a minute, this guy doesn't just not have the money; he's just not paying me for a reason.
I probably should have added that we're not. It's a student in a college town, and we're not renewing the lease in June. He's changing where he's living. How about the local magistrate? Is that something they can deal with?
Well, you can go to the local magistrate and complain that you're being constructively evicted.
Well, we're not being evicted.
No, constructively evicted.
Oh, okay.
Constructively means, not actually evicted, but constructively meaning if they don't remedy this, then I can't live there anymore. But is the problem really something that really forces you out of the residence?
No.
And so that's the issue. So
it's just that there have been things that I feel they didn't, that we paid for that we didn't get.
Well, you can sue them. I mean, that's your ultimate remedy. My advice is to sue them because if you just don't pay, then it's going to look like you just didn't pay, right?
Yeah.
If you sue them for breach of contract and say, I want this money back, so continue to pay your rent, but say, I want this money back as breach of contract, or I'm going to withhold so much, or I'm withholding so much preemptively from the rent to cover the cost of these things I didn't get, and I'm suing for breach of contract, at least it's going to look a little cleaner later on. That's my thought.
Okay, good advice.
All right, good luck.
Thanks, sir. Bye.
College town rentals. Those are a mess. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your question. Of course, throughout the week, if you need me, just go to romingerlaw.com. Bernie, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing today, Carl?
Good.
Yeah, I got a real quick question. My daughter's going through a divorce, and she has been living with us. She brought the grandson with her, and his father, the person she's getting divorced from, is not his biological father. But that has nothing to do with it. My question is, she's moving out. She's got her own place. The grandson's going to stay with us because he doesn't want to swap school districts again. I understand that. I spent 20 years in the Army, and I was an Army brat before that. What I want to know is, should she give us some sort of like custody or something like that for while she's not around, and just in case something happens with him, so that we can take care of everything that's needed. He's 14 years old. I mean, he's the reason I don't have to buy a snowblower this year.
Well, there's two reasons for that, actually. There's not a lot of snow either. Fortunately for him.
Thanks for that, Carl. We're going to get dumped on probably next week.
I say fortunately for him, right?
Yeah.
You can probably find some other chores for him.
Oh yeah, he's a workout beast.
The long and short of it is, so basically you're saying, should we get something done with custody now in case something happens?
Well, custody or some sort of a legal document stating that, yes, we are providing we are his guardians, I guess. We would
usually do in these cases a guardianship paper where mom or dad or both sign it, and they basically say grandma and grandpa are going to be in charge of the child. And it's really a sort of a power of attorney.
That's kind of what I figured.
Yeah, and it's useful because doctors, schools, people like that like to know, and usually put a reason in it, and we also sometimes put an expiration date in it too, and say, that I intend to be back by such and such a date, and therefore it shouldn't go farther than. That way, it has a closed period to it. It doesn't really matter because it can be revoked at any time. And if something actually happens to the person, then you're going to have to go to custody court anyhow.
Outstanding. Well, thanks a lot, Carl.
All right, brother. Just contact us. We'll be happy to draw it up for you.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, take care. 540-0580. Who have I got on 3 here? She don't have a name. Jay.
Hey, Carl.
How you been?
I've been okay. I've been busy doing Santa in December and had some rehearsals in January, but I'm back live.
Excellent.
Not that I have anything specific. I was a little disappointed when I was on Facebook and I sent you some messages. I knew you were busy. I was kind of hoping this was after a lot of the gun controversy in December, because I'm not doing it for publication. I'm just curious. I come from the other side, the dark side.
The dark side.
And listen to WHP. And because I come from the city, I don't know, maybe that's it. And so I couldn't quite comprehend that an intelligent guy like you. No, I know we were just on different things. And I don't have anything specific. I would love to sit down with one of you radio guys off the record just to find out, do you really think the way you think on the radio, or are you playing to, you're 99% of your listeners sometimes.
I was gonna say the same thing about you. I mean, you're a trained actor. For all I know, you could be the hardest core conservative listener we have. Who just plays the liberal shill.
Well, Ronald Reagan was a trained actor. I
know. Hold on, Jay. I got to go to break, but I want to talk to you a little more after.
Okay, sure.
540-0580. All right, welcome back. 540-0580. Jay, you still there? How you do, Jay? You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. So, the long and short of it is on the gun issue. I think the answer is we have to come to a sensible solution. I have no problem with keeping the guns out of the hands of the mentally ill and the mentally unstable. I think we need more guns in the hands of the healthy and safe.
Well,
and we need them to carry them.
I understand that. Let me ask you this, and I don't want to get into a gun show. I really just called to say, hey, I'm back. How you doing?
That's cool.
Hope you had a happy New Year. But one thing did occur to me. They're all talking. Now, when I was a kid, I was in Philadelphia. I was in a pretty decent high school in the city. They didn't have any problems, but we had one or two, and they're in the yearbook. They took their picture, and they're in uniform with their revolvers. We had 2 officers assigned to the school.
Mm-hmm.
That they weren't really trying to keep people out. I could go in and go get a pass to visit teachers and things after I graduated. They were more concerned with fights or stuff like that. If a couple kids duked it out, that's what they were there for. And so I don't have any problems with police in the schools. I wonder why shouldn't we have police in workplaces? I used to work on a federal installation, a military installation. They had guards with guns, but they weren't around all the time. Not in all the workplaces. I mean, I just don't hear people say, well, we should have guns, we should have people trained as we schools get all the attention because we're all soft and about kids, and that's natural. And these things seem to be happening in schools, but I'm sure they happen elsewhere too. What about just? I just don't think I want everybody carrying guns like the Wild West, and that's what I really can't. I can understand Second Amendment. I'm really pretty moderate about that.
Right.
I can't understand, and I understand the slippery slope. If you ban this kind of gun, you can ban this kind of gun, and I understand what the Second Amendment was all about, was the protection from the government and all that stuff. I just don't understand gun nuts. I don't understand the NRA. I don't understand the love of the gun. And we're never going to resolve that because where I come from, you like you say, you talk about it in Philadelphia, you're going to get a different.
Yeah, and so my only thought on the matter is, I guess to kind of wrap that up, is there are people out there who can find at least one common ground, which is they may be for more background checks for everybody and stricter ownership requirements, etc., but they're also in favor of, say, putting the guns in schools, letting professors carry them, things like that, where they're properly trained to protect students.
Well, let me ask you about this case. There was one case, remember right after that, locally, I think, or no, it was in New York. Or no, maybe it was locally. There was a murder or two. Maybe it was the guy up in New York who was shooting at the firemen or something. Who had just gotten out of prison.
Right.
Remember that? How do you get guns? If he's a felon, how do you get guns?
Yeah, well, that's the answer. And the answer is how do felons and non-felons alike get cocaine? Because
there's always money to be made. There's people that's the prime thing in life, money to be made. You know?
Right.
But I don't want to start. Please, folks, don't start calling in about all this.
Now, we'll keep it more legal today.
I'm just going to listen. I just wanted to say hello.
In fact, Jay, I'm about to bring on Jay Nesbitt here. Or, I'm sorry, Dave Nesbitt from Keystone Elder Law, and he's going to talk about the fiscal cliff with us because I want to know a little bit more about the ramifications of it.
Yeah, I'll listen in.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
540-0580. Dave, have I got you?
You have. Carl, I'm glad I have you. When you weren't in the studio last week, I was afraid you fell off the cliff.
Well, I was actually shooting a deer down in Maryland.
Well, that's what I heard, but I thought I'd give you a rough time anyway about it. But, the main thing about this fiscal cliff is, I believe for seniors, it's much ado about nothing. Much of what I do, as I'm sure you know, is to try to reduce stress levels of seniors and caregivers, and because they have enough already.
Right.
And I think Washington politicians, I'll say, and I'm an equal opportunity criticizer, both Republicans and Democrats, seem to be trying to make the opponent the villain as a primary objective. That might be because older Americans have heard so much baloney from Washington over the years that they're no longer optimistic the government's going to fix the problem. They're just looking for the lesser of two evils. But taking that cynicism aside, most senior citizens really will not see any change by what happened or what might have happened. These threats that Medicare was about to get blown up, that's not real. The one thing that could have occurred that would have been detrimental was that there was a threat to make a unilateral cut in Medicare funding to physician services. That would have been detrimental, but that did not occur. There was also something that occurred where the Class Act, which is the provision of Obamacare or the Affordable Health Act, that President Obama, at the urging of the Congressional Budget Office, admitted was not going to work. He admitted that in October of 2011 before the election. So that was ineffective anyway. That was taken off the table. It was impractical. That was struck as part of the fiscal cliff compromise, but it was just, if you will, housekeeping because it was not effective anyway. And in exchange, Jay Rockefeller, a Democratic senator from West Virginia, proposed an initiative that there be a long-term care commission of sorts that will be, I'll say, a blue ribbon task force that will meet, hopefully in good faith, to try to propose solutions.
Interesting.
That's really, I think, what happened. Now, I'm just glad I don't have to be in Washington as a talking head or soundbite machine, and can be here and try to be in the trenches and deal with what we have.
I know on the and just talking about just the general estate planning issues, they didn't touch the tax situation, did they?
Well, not really. The main issue is estate taxes for those who want to leave money to their children. It really doesn't affect a married couple unless they have more than $10 million, and I think the increase, the amount went up a little bit from that. It's used to be $5 million a person, and it's a little bit more than $5 million now. But honestly, not many of our clients are that blessed with money. I think they all go to your firm, right?
Well, actually, it was interesting when you mentioned that when they changed that from $1 million to $5 million. Mm-hmm. They exempted almost anybody and their brother from a federal estate tax, except for very, very few people.
That's right. Which surprises me because I would think it would be easier to tax dead people than living people. It just occurs to me. But anyway, we specialize more in trying to help people deal with the expenses and the stress of long-term care while they're living. We're more about that than about saving estates for people and saving their money for after they're dead. We know how to do that, but that's not our passion.
Right.
And in that sense, I just wanted to let you know, first off, I wanted to thank you because many of your listeners have attended a seminar that we've offered in the past and have said that they were glad they did. We're having another series of seminars this Thursday at a hotel in the Ross Moines Business Center, which is at Route 15 and the Turnpike in Mechanicsburg.
Well, what do they need to do to go to that?
They just need to call. We have them at 10, 2, and 7. Our phone number is 717-697-3223, and that number spells My Peace. So we encourage people to dial that number, 697-3223, call us and reserve a spot, and we'll have materials and expect them. And
Dave, my only requirement for the listeners is they have to tell you that they've heard about it on the show.
Well, they do. We want them to, and we track that. We really work to find out what works as far as getting the word out. And I'll tell you, a lot of people listen to your show. They really do. And many of the people who come to our seminars come because they say they heard us or you mentioned it or something. So it's
No, and I strongly encourage them to do that. People ask me sometimes, they say, well, when should I start worrying about this stuff? And when I was a kid, I knew a guy who was a professional driver, not like a race car driver, but, he drove buses and trucks for a living and done it for years. And he was involved in the Boy Scouts. So, of course, I dutifully said, "Hey, Jody, I have a question. When do I know it's right to turn my headlights on?" And he looked at me and he goes, "If you have to think about it, just turn them on."
That's right. And, we deal, I say we're dealing with people to save their money in a crisis. We are. But we're also really, I'm 58. I'm trying to talk to people my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, and say, you're going to get older. You're going to live longer than you say in your macho moments you want to. You're going to get a little weaker when you get older. Why not put some money aside, and that way you won't have to worry about it? And the way to put money aside is to invest in long-term care insurance. And I don't care whether people do it with their Rotary buddy, golfing buddy, next-door neighbor, or us. We can do it, but I just feel passionately that baby boomers should be investing in long-term care insurance because they can stretch their money by really 7 times over if they would just put the money aside in an investment. It's a negative thought that we're going to need it later, but most of us do.
Right, and so. I've had a few clients over the years who ran out of money just a little too short, It's
better to run out of time than money at the end of it, really.
Right, and that's kind of, I told you, you say if you want to die, people say they live so long, but I want to be shot by a jealous husband at 99. That's my plan.
Well, that is a way to go. I hear that one. I also hear I'm going to get me a Harley, and I'm going to ride 120 down Route 81. The problem is by the time somebody needs to make that decision, they're not competent to buy the Harley, usually.
And actually I have this theory about aging, right? And I'll tell you what it is. You never really realize how much you're slowing down because it's so incremental.
Yep.
That you're comparing yourself to yesterday every day.
I like to use the example of a frog cooking very slowly in a cold pot of water.
Right. And so, people always think, no, I'm pretty fast. I'm as fast as I was. I'm not that much slower. But if you compared yourself at 52 to 18, one day to the next, boy, if you were 18 and you woke up at 52, how would you feel?
Well, hair dye can be a great thing, but sometimes it can go too far in how it makes us feel, I think.
Dave, again, how can people get in touch with you for the seminar, and when and where is it?
Well, they can call our office. It's 717-697-2223. Excuse me, 3223. Don't even know my own phone number. 697-3223. And it is this coming Thursday, and we have it at 10, 2, and 7 o'clock at the Ross Moyne Business Center at a hotel there. And if they call in, we'll have a package of information ready and a seat available.
All right.
It's about a 1-hour seminar, and it is free.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let you go because I'm going to have to go to break here in a second.
Thank you, Carl. Always good talking with you.
All right, and I'll have Shane get the information and give it to me so I can post it on my Facebook page as well.
That's cool.
All right, brother.
Thanks.
540-0580 is the talk line here. When we come back from the break, we'll talk with Chris, Tim, and Dave. See you in a minute. Well, it's Saturday afternoon. You know what that means. I'm here on the radio, 540-0580. It's the last day of the Pennsylvania muzzleloader/bow hunting season. Obviously, I haven't done any of that today. But I got my deer in Maryland last week, so good enough. Cooked up some victuals. Made pancakes this morning, too, Shane. I've put my recipe, by the way. My recipe for pancakes is up on Facebook along with a picture of them.
Isn't that something you're supposed to keep to yourself?
The pancake recipe?
Yeah, or just any recipe. No one likes to give away their own recipes.
Well, this is a recipe I made myself. I made it up completely from whole cloth. They're
Why
pancakes.
Are you not selling this?
Pancakes because they're very good for you, and I want to share the nutrition with the world. These pancakes, these are not like your, what do I want to call your commercial pancakes made with finely milled flour and sugar. These are wholesome pancakes that include flaxseed and whole wheat pastry flour, the whole 9 yards.
You need to get Rominger & Associates pancakes, man. You gotta market this stuff.
All right, Shane's going crazy. Tim, you're on the air. Hey, Tim. Yes.
Carl.
What's going on, my friend?
Oh God, I didn't know I was on there.
You're live. You're on the air. Everybody can hear your thoughts.
Oh, great. I have a few questions I want to run past you. My parents actually referenced me to you.
Okay.
I recently went through a divorce probably about 2.5 years ago. Had problems in my marriage probably 3-4 years prior to that. She left, took the kids with her. Pretty much my lawyer told me, give it a couple years. Your kids will, once they reach the age, which my daughter is going on almost 14, my son is 9, that they may change their mind and want me to have part custody of them. Well, the age has come, and they do want me to have part custody of them.
Okay.
I need to know how to go about this.
Well, there's no magic age in Pennsylvania, okay? But the long and short of it, if the kids want to be with you, that alone has been determined by the courts to be a substantial change in circumstance which warrants a potential change in custody if it's in the children's best interest. So what we would do is basically go to court. Well, first we try to ask the other side, right? Here's what we want to do. And if they say no, then we'll go to court and ask a judge to make it so.
Okay. The other thing is with the child support that I'm paying, I'm a blue-collar worker. I don't have a lot of money. So what I need to do is find a lawyer that will work with me as far as money.
Well, I'll explain it this way. We try to work with people if we can. We have to have certain amounts of retainers. We have to have filing fees. Unfortunately, courts are expensive. And obviously, depending on which lawyer in the office you go with based on level of experience and demand. So while I may have a higher retainer fee, some of my associates do not. So we'd be happy to work with you.
Okay. And what is the phone number that I can retain?
Yeah. The office number is 717-241. 717-241-6070. So we know it's 717, I guess. But you know what? Actually, we don't know it's 717 because I was riding in the car, remember, 2 weeks ago. So I got to listen to my own show as I drove, and I went out to Turnpike. And I think I made it all the way to Somerset, and I could still hear the show being broadcast. So if you think about that, it's pretty interesting. So it's 717-241-6070.
Okay, got that number down. I'll probably be giving you a call.
All right, Tim. We're looking for it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. 540-0580, of course, is the talk line number. Chris, what's going on? Chris,
yes. Hey, Carl. Thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. If I wake up in the middle of the night to somebody ransacking my house and stealing things, and I yell at them to stop, and they don't attack me, they just continue on ransacking and stealing, can I use force on them?
So they're in your house?
Yep.
And they're stealing?
Yep.
Are they allowed to be in your house?
No.
Okay, I wanted to make sure it wasn't like your husband or boyfriend or something. Because, right, that's the beginning of the murder plot right here. Now, I would say if somebody's in your house and they've broken or entered into your house, you have no duty to retreat, okay? Now, if they're not showing any lethal force or making any threat at you, you may not shoot them yet. But if you were to feel that they were sufficiently close or that they were likely to hurt you such that you had a reasonable fear based on your belief, as you believed it to be at the time, then you could shoot them.
So I can only use force if I believe my life is in danger?
Yeah, basically. I mean, you have no duty to retreat, and you have the right in a house, and you have the ability to stand your ground, but we're not a state that says just because somebody's in your house, we presume that your life and limb is at peril. But I would be able to make a pretty good argument that somebody broke into your house and they're not compliant, and you have a weapon and they're not obeying you, that obviously they feel that they're going to attack you or something. I don't know. I mean, so you think you could probably eke out a self-defense argument, but I sure wouldn't want those facts presented in front of a jury because that's as close to a non-self-defense as you're going to get with it still being close to self-defense. Now, of course, if you never talked to the police and you never talked at all, I could just tell the jury, well, there was a man in her house. He was breaking in. He was stealing things, and she confronted him, and he got shot. And then we don't really know the exact circumstance beyond that, right? But we can speculate that you'd have felt scared.
Okay.
So, has this been happening lately, or what's going on?
No. I was just talking with a friend, and he really didn't know the answer to that because he said, if you use deadly force, you got to make sure that your life is in danger.
You have to not be 100% correct, but you have to reasonably believe, under the circumstances as you believe them to be. So it's a weird little quirk. It's sort of like whatever's in your head, we accept as true, and then we go, whatever's in your head, would a reasonable person feel that they're in danger of serious bodily injury or death? So it doesn't have to be death even.
Let me play devil's advocate. What if he says, I'm not going to hurt you, but I'm going to continue taking things from your house?
Well, at this point, I'm wondering why we aren't just popping the cell phone or the phone out and calling 911 to start with.
Right.
And keeping our gun on him. But, it gets to be complicated. And if he makes a sudden move or even turns towards me, I think I'm going to just think that he might be getting aggressive at that point.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm just telling you, that's an interesting scenario. I would suspect, though, that if you're pointing a gun at somebody and they're ignoring you that much, I would start to worry about them because I'd wonder, what's wrong with this guy that he's not even pressed that I'm pointing a gun at him? He must know something I don't, or he must be so bat guano crazy that I probably should be worried about him. Right. But I would still try, and I every time I've done this lecture, and I do it for Fish and Game Club, so if anybody wants me to come out and do it, I'll do it for them, or I do it for any group that wants it on self-defense. I always tell people, as much as you want to be like, Arnold Schwarzenegger and, throw a pipe into a guy and say, let out some steam, John, or, all those other, yippee-yi-yay lines from, and I can't finish the line for obvious reasons, from Die Hard. As much as, in that machismo moment, you might want to say those things and do it. The reality is you really don't want to shoot somebody if you don't have to.
Right.
All right?
All right, thank you.
All right, Chris, go back to these. It sounds like one of these bar bet conversations.
Yeah, okay.
540-0580. Eric, you're on the air.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm going to sort of need to segue into it. Would that be all right?
All right, we'll figure out how to do it.
Okay, I was pulled over. I'm not going to mention the name of the town or the county, but I was pulled over several months ago while taking a friend of mine home who I just randomly met. I met her at a bar. As soon as she said that she needed a ride home, I stopped drinking.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, I'm 40 now. I don't drink and drive.
Right.
I drank and drove one time, and I was scared to death. And I was when I was 15 before I had a driver's license. So, basically, this girl needed a ride home, so I took her home. I was pulled over because I did have an expired tag. It was the beginning of September, and I had an August tag on because I had just received August tag in the mail and hadn't gotten around to putting it on the car yet.
Right.
Okay. So I guess they had a reason to stop me, but then they didn't stop me until I pulled into the parking lot of the apartment building that this girl lives in, and apparently there's known crystal meth activity there, and this is a smaller town in northern central Pennsylvania, and it has a bad meth problem.
Is this kind of girl we're taking home to mom or no?
No, she's a nice girl. She's experiencing problems, but she's a nice girl. She was not doing anything. She wasn't doing that.
Right. I'm just teasing you a little bit.
Well, yeah, but okay, good. I'm glad to see you have a sense of humor about this because I'm trying, Joe.
Okay, so what happens next?
Okay, next they were getting out of the car. And they turn on the flashing lights. There's two cars, and they tell us to get back in the car.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm fine. I do what I'm supposed to. I get back in the car, and I put my hands up on the dashboard where they can see them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ask for my license and registration. I give them my license, my address update card, my insurance, all that stuff. And I also have paper clipped around my license. A card saying I refuse to give up any of my constitutional rights. I don't want to answer any questions. I may voluntarily answer questions, but I do not consent to any search of anything. I will not be put in a lineup or anything. It's a card that's attached and it's directed to law enforcement officers, and it cites some case, ACLU versus somebody.
Gotcha.
Okay. And, they give me out, they say, in the affidavit of probable cause that I received, it says that he noticed signs about me when he took my stuff.
I got to go to break. We're going to pick this up on the other side. Hold on.
Okay, cool. I definitely will.
All right, 540-0580. Oh, where were we here? So, Eric, let me summarize. You're at the bar, you're drinking, you're having a good time, you meet a girl, she needs a ride home, your mind gets to work, you stop drinking, you drive her home, the police are there, police have you out of the car, you're one of those guys who's got his rights wrapped around his license, and the police officer, of course, seeing this, probably gets miffed, so tell me what happens next.
Okay, he asked me to step out of the car.
Okay.
And he shines light. He's like, I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm like, I don't want to be a complete prick. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I ran into a friend of mine tonight, and she needed a ride home, and I'm giving her a ride home. I'm dropping her off. I was going to go inside for a few minutes, and I'm leaving. And he shines his light in my face, and I'll say, I take a prescription amphetamine for ADD.
Did you tell them that?
Not at first.
You should never tell them
I
that.
don't volunteer.
Never tell the police what drugs you're taking. Never. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I volunteered no information at first.
Well, okay.
He's like, but then.
So you screwed it up later. Go ahead.
My face, and he called someone up, some other guy over there, and he's like, hey, come here and look at this. And he's like, He's like, yeah, I see it too. He's like, all right, I'm gonna have you perform a field sobriety test. I believe that you're under the influence of an intoxicant. I said, if you believe that is because my pupils were dilated, I take a medicine that causes that. I still didn't tell him that I was taking a prescribed amphetamine.
Right.
And he said, well, I want you to take a field sobriety test. And I was like, I know I could refuse, but then they're going to run me in for blood work.
Okay.
And I know that I also had marijuana in my system because I had smoked about 2.5 days before. I'm like a whole lot of people that hide in the closet.
Listen.
The occasional recreation.
Keep in mind everything you're saying. There's no privilege here. The whole world can hear you.
I really don't care.
All right, good. Well, I just want to make sure. I always remind when people start confessing to the crimes. I always like to remind them.
Yeah, I'm very low key. I do not look or act like the kind of person that does anything like that. So I didn't want to be sent just for blood work. I would rather take the sobriety test because I know that I'm completely sober. Because
gotcha.
I later administered a breathalyzer, and I came out at like 0.023 or something.
Good.
Except because I know when to not drive, and I know that's ends like way before 0.08. I don't even want to get close to that.
Mm-hmm.
And he first has me perform the field sobriety test on like a uphill slope that was that had the larger like parking lot stones in it.
Right.
So it was like off balance, and I was like, he's like, tilt your head back, and I'm like tilting my head back downhill, and I was like, I stumbled just a little bit, but I caught myself, and I was able to successfully perform the entire sobriety test on a downhill angle.
Did they claim you flunked it or not?
He said in the affidavit of probable cause, he said that I performed poorly.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that I did wrong. And
Listen.
He took me over and took me behind the car and performed it again on level ground, and it was 100%.
Well, yeah, but that one's probably not on video, right? The one in front of the car probably was. Anyhow, what happens next? So,
well, no, I believe it was still, I believe, in front of one of the police cars.
Yeah, good luck getting the video. Watch this. But
okay,
anyhow.
Well, that's not even it. We haven't got to the good part.
Get to the good part here, because
Okay, I told him, look, they were searching my car, and I told him, look, I said, I don't give any, I don't consent to a search of my car without a warrant. And he said, we don't need consent. And, but they didn't find anything because there's nothing to find. So they arrested me for DUI, sent me to I demanded that a state police DRE, because the guy told me, he said, like, I'm an expert. He said, but the only person that can save you is this state police DRE from this area.
Oh, He's so full of bunk. He's trying to trick you into getting with a DRE guy. So then you demanded a DRE.
No, I begged for him to come in because I knew that I was 100% sober.
Okay.
I begged for him to come in. This guy ran me through every test in the book, and he eventually told me, I don't even know why I'm here. He cleared me for intoxication of alcohol, intoxication of marijuana. He cleared me for intoxication of any benzodiazepines.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he only noticed the presence of a stimulant in my system, but I told him, I said, look, I take Adderall. He said, but it very well could be due to this prescription, and this is his dosage, and I am sending an order for blood work to be done only for amphetamines above a therapeutic level.
Okay.
I usually have extra left at the end of every month, so
Gotcha.
I know that it was lower than what I was prescribed. But here's the deal. They found the marijuana in the blood,
Right.
which I don't even think they were supposed to check for it, and I was now charged with driving under the influence of a controlled substance,
Metabolite.
like category 1, or class 1 or whatever marijuana is.
So what's your question?
Okay.
Is it getting longer than a Stephen King book?
I need a lawyer, but 2, I'm like, I can beat this, right? Because I wasn't, marijuana stays in your system for a while.
But the law says, listen, brother, listen to me very carefully. It is illegal to drive with the metabolite of marijuana in your system in such small quantities that you can smoke a joint on Tuesday and be pulled over 4 Tuesdays later and still be guilty of a DUI.
See, but would that be guilt? Because I thought it was because it's.
No, listen to me. I'm telling you the way it is. You can fly to you can
driving.
Listen to me.
I'm sorry.
Listen to me very carefully. No evidence of impairment necessary. No effect on you necessary. The per se DUI is that small amount of metabolite. You, my friend, have got to suppress the blood result. You've got to show that they should not have ever taken your blood. You should show that the stop was coercive and you were arrested without probable cause. And then if you can suppress the blood, you win. Other than that, you'd be guilty.
I believe it's all fruit of the poisonous tree. I don't.
Well, but
I was pulled over because I was a white guy in a small town with a meth problem, and they didn't recognize me.
I understand, but we got to get back to that, and that's where, if the police choose to lie, it'll be very difficult to win. If they tell the truth, you may have a chance. Is this a first offense DUI?
Oh, yeah. I've never had it.
That's your other problem. They're going to offer you ARD, and if you don't take ARD, then it's an all or none proposition.
Yeah, well, no, because I'm not guilty.
Eric,
I'm going to college.
Eric, you're actually guilty. You are. Hey, stop! You are guilty. You're guilty. You had the metabolite of marijuana in your blood at the time you operated a motor vehicle. You're guilty. The only question is whether your constitutional rights were violated. That's different than guilt.
Absolutely.
That's different than guilt. Okay? You're guilty.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, I am not guilty then. Let's
You are guilty. You are guilty. I pronounce you guilty. The question is whether they violated your rights or not. If they violated your rights, then they can't prosecute you even though you're guilty. But the fact that the fruit came from a poisonous tree does not make you innocent, okay?
Okay,
all right?
Technically.
All right. No, not technically, as a matter of fact. All right, anyhow. It's my show. I get to yell at anybody I want. 540-0580. When we get back, we'll talk some more, and I'll explain why I was yelling at him.